All right. This is an example of what I'm talking about. This is one of those uh a sort of like it's to guide your brain to a specific location. All right? So it's to guide your ideas and your thoughts towards a specific direction, right? So imagine this is reality right here. You exist in it. Everything that is real exists within reality. Things like trees and rocks and grass and all sorts of other shit exists all in here, and this is reality, right? Now if we zoom out a little bit, right, first off, let's look at you, right? We know that you can sort of access things that are outside of reality, right? You can tap into this little fantasy area right over here where you got shit like unicorns and stuff that we can imagine but that doesn't exist within reality but still exists somewhere, right? This is the space that I call actuality, right? So if you zoom out of reality, you realize that everything that doesn't exist in reality is somewhere because of the fact that you can imagine it, right? So it does exist somewhere, and it exists in this space called actuality. Actuality is infinite in size because there's an infinite number of things that you can imagine, right? And it is about comprehending what this infinity can do that makes everything so powerful. So like let's look over here at the size, right? So we have some conclusions about actuality. Actuality is this entire space right over here. As you can see, it's a bubble that contains reality within it. This, but I put little infinity signs over here because it's infinite in size, and I can't represent that. Like if I were to draw it, it would go off the paper, you know. But everything exists out here. Everything that doesn't exist in reality, and everything that does exist in reality exists out here. So you got random shit. You got smiley faces. You got Saturn. You got a fucking dick. Like you got hella shit out here that just exists in actuality, but that doesn't exist in our reality, right? Therefore we can't see it. We don't have how can we see this planet off over in actuality because we're in reality. We don't have access to that unless of course we were to imagine it, in which case we would now have access to it, right? Anyways, right, so conclusions about actuality: everything is in it, even stuff that doesn't exist in reality. So we already went over that part, right? By nature of this space being infinite, several things are guaranteed, right? What does this mean, right? Because of the fact that it's infinite and that time is infinite within it, right? So it's not like time runs out and it's an infinite space. So theoretically, anything that can happen eventually will happen and has been happening out here in actuality, right? So the existence of forces within actuality that can impact reality. Reality is sort of like the shadow of things within actuality. As you can see, these things have all been existing outside here, and we're only able to tap into them. It's sort of like a tree, right? It's like the process of observing, measuring, and therefore learning is like tapping into the inherent knowledge that was already present within actuality, right? It was already there. It existed prior to you, prior to the existence of reality. It was already there. There was already something. It's just that reality popped up and you are in reality accessing these things that are outside of it, right? What was I saying? Yeah, learning is tapping into the inherent knowledge that was already present within actuality. This is done by inventing and by like learning shit, right? By inventing a mechanism of understanding or comprehending the knowledge. Think about the invention of an inch and how that shapes your reality, right? We measure things in our reality in inches. You could be like, oh, this diagram of a tree is like uh, a certain number of, it's probably 6 feet tall because trees are usually 6 feet tall. We measure our reality in these made up units. Like an inch doesn't exist. Like fundamentally, it is a human idea that we came up with. It doesn't exist. And it wouldn't have existed unless we created it to then understand this. It's like the creation of stuff leads us into this like reservoir of knowledge, right? So, yeah, this part over here on the right. Knowledge. Keep in mind it must have existed prior to you experiencing it in order for you to have experienced it in the first place. Therefore, we can assume that knowledge is not like invented. It's not like someone invented the idea of hot and cold or of magnetism or anything like that. It had already existed. We just discovered it by assigning an arbitrary unit to it, assigning a way to measure it. You know, in the case of temperature, you came up with Celsius and you came up with Fahrenheit. These are ways of measuring temperature. And then by doing that, we can now pull it from actuality into reality, right? And that's this whole process, right? In actuality, everything exists, and the process of measuring is taking things from actuality and pulling them into reality where we can definitively measure them. Problem being, not everything in actuality is measurable within reality. Like, there's things that exist out here that you cannot see from within here, obviously. Like literally this, right? You're right here. You can't see that picture of the dick that I drew in the corner, right? When you're here, you can, like it's sort of like that, right? What else? So yeah, by nature of the infinity, right? There's some forces out in infinity that must be able to impact things within reality. And if you think even closer about the ideas of infinity, there's infinity. So there's an infinite number of these things in infinity that can impact reality, right? So not only the existence of forces that can impact reality within this actuality space, but an infinite number of those forces that can have legitimate effects on reality must therefore exist within this space, right? And I guess another way of describing this is sort of as like reality is the 3D is the three-dimensional shadow of the fourth dimensional actuality. Out of everything that can happen, what we experience in reality is what does happen, right? So everything that does happen is within reality, but everything still exists. It's not like this stuff isn't here. It's just a matter of us not having tapped into that part of the tree yet, like, yeah. So let me get to the final point that I came up with. Imagination and invention is us tapping into this infinite, already existing knowledge and pulling elements of it into reality, thus allowing it to manifest in reality, right? Cool, right? Seems interesting. It's just imagination though, not crazy useful, right? Except for the fact that it is, because everything exists out here in actuality, and everything out here has an impact on things in here. So, and remember, you access things out here by imagining them. That's what this stream is. It's a stream of imagination. You tap into these outside properties and pull them into reality to do things with. So the process of manifestation is literally a scientific one where you use your imagination to grab some outside source and pull it into reality. That's what it is. It's the process of thinking things. It's the process of creating measurements to then describe those things. It's the theory of low-key everything. I'm not going to lie to you. So the real question is, like, what if we want a specific position within actuality? We want a specific outcome. Maybe this outcome is us getting rich or whatever. There is an optimal, like, this thing exists out here for sure, but it doesn't exist within reality. So we can't figure out how to get to it, right? The only way to get to it is to then imagine it and create that link and then start moving towards it, right? Start taking actions that will move you towards this link. So we have to find the best series of actions that can be taken in order to slowly progress us towards that position within actuality. Because the position does exist. It has existed prior to our discovery of it. It's just it doesn't exist in reality. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, though, I don't know. Does this make sense? Let me know.